Tennessee mom is sitting in jail just days after giving birth because both she and her newborn tested positive for meth. 26-year-old Mallory Larola was charged with assault under a controversial new state law that makes it a crime to take drugs while pregnant. The ACLU is already vowing to challenge the law, saying it violates the privacy rights of pregnant women and discourages addicts from seeking treatment. All right, Greg, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. That's bad, I'd say, for her to use drugs while having a baby. But you know what? I got to say, I've never met a woman in my entire life who initiated her drug habit. It's always been introduced to her by a guy, usually an older guy. And a guy cannot be busted for a crime like this because he's not carrying a baby. But drugs and alcohol are not the same for men and for women, and I think it's a big issue. I think there should be some lenience on women.
Okay.
How's that?
Anna?
Well, she is an adult, and at some point, the protection of a child and of innocent life has to. I think that is something that we have to be for. So I think that she should be in trouble for it. I mean, I hope that there is treatment for it, but I don't know. I've just never done drugs. I don't understand. And she says that she smoked meth or however you do it 4 days before she gave birth. So that's a choice. Maybe she's an addict, but she made a decision, and I think she should have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. This is where I think the pro-choice community gets in a little bit of trouble.
Agree.
Because they've argued that this isn't a fetus, right? The third party isn't a fetus. Well, it's a child now who's born addicted to drugs. And they get in the same type of trouble when they argue against partial birth and other things, because the progressives don't think that this is a problem. I mean, if the ACLU was going to have money well spent, they would try and get these women in treatment instead of trying to argue equal protection under the law, which to Greg's point is, it doesn't really make sense because men can't get pregnant. But I don't think there's any winning argument. I don't think either side wins when they argue this. It's too tough.
You sure you want to pass it?
No, I could. I can. We have time. Look, it's child abuse. That's exactly what it is. What's the difference between abusing a child that's in the womb right now or when it comes out? If you were feeding drugs to an infant, it would be the same thing. So I would call that child abuse. Yeah, and she should be.
I tell you, I've struggled with this since this topic came up, and I tend to come down on both what Greg said. For addicts, a lot of these women, particularly very young women who have babies, 15, 16, 17 years old, are introduced to drugs by pimps and other people who are bad guys. And I would not throw them in jail. However, I take to Dana's point, about 26 years old, by that time, you're aware. And if you're going to use methamphetamine, probably the worst thing you could use, even more than crack, it's probably going to be certainly a sure thing that you're going to have a child born who is not well.
Can I mention one last thing?
Yeah.
So she says she smoked the meth 6 days before she gave birth. If on that day she had been hit by a drunk driver and she and the baby had been killed, that drunk driver would have been busted for 2 lives. And so then it's the same, it's still substance abuse. So to me, she has to be responsible as well under the law.
And there should be a carve-out for women who go and seek help.
Agree.
One more thing. It's up next.